All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fourth and final NELI Programme webinar of the year on the theme of You Spoke, We Listened. My name is Sarah Hearn and I work as part of the NELI team at Oxford and Assessment, and I'm joined on today's panel by my colleague, Harley Richardson, who is Chief Product Officer here at Oxford.
Hello everyone, I oversee the development of Oxford's assessment apps and web platform, and I'm looking forward to talking about the changes we've made in response to your feedback, as well as some of the new features we have coming up.
So before we get going, here's what you can all expect from this session. We're going to be here until about 4:15, and we'll use the first 5 or 10 minutes or so to share just some of the stories that we've been sent in from NELI practitioners about the challenges and the successes that they've experienced this year, and also discuss some key lessons to take away. Then we'll spend around 20 minutes discussing some of the changes and updates that we've made to the NELI programme in response to your feedback, and some exciting new elements that we're planning to introduce to continue to support your work improving oral language. Then, as usual, we'll round off by discussing a selection of key questions which we've received ahead of today's session. And we'd also like to invite you to submit your own questions and comments into the webinar Q&A throughout, as our support team will be on hand to answer any questions that they can. And finally, just a reminder that, as always, everyone's cameras and microphones are automatically set to off, and the webinar is being recorded so that we can share it with anyone who wasn't able to attend. So to get started, let's jump into our practitioner stories. So one of the most common things that NELI practitioners tell us is that they love NELI and they can see its impact, but that it can be difficult to follow the recommended delivery timeline of 3 group sessions and 2 individual sessions per week for 20 weeks starting in the spring term. And it's important to mention here that there's no doubt that NELI is a time-intensive intervention, but as you'll already know, improving children's language isn't a quick and easy task, and we know how important it is that your limited time is well spent, which is why we've worked hard to test NELI rigorously before bringing it to you. So you can feel confident that the time and the effort that you're spending is going to lead to results for your children. And really the key takeaway here is that although we provide you with a recommended delivery structure, ultimately the programme needs to work for you and for your school in order for you to deliver as much of the intervention as possible. So if you're finding it difficult to fit the programme into 20 weeks, whether that's because of unexpected disruptions or perhaps because you're working part-time, as in the example on the slide, one option is to start delivery earlier in the year, for example, in the second half of autumn term, to allow yourself more time to get through the intervention content before summer. Although if you are working part-time, it's always an option to train up another member of staff and share delivery as well, as long as that's a resource that's available in your school, of course. We also know of schools who can't deliver sessions on certain days, for example, due to forest school or other school activities, and they're working around this by condensing their weekly NELI timetable slightly. So if they can't deliver sessions on a Friday for any reason, they might deliver their individual sessions on Thursday morning and then the final group session on Thursday afternoon. And this is also absolutely fine. Although do try to remember that the children will need time to process what they're learning. So it's important not to condense the timetable too much, and it's better to deliver over a slightly longer time period if possible. Our next 2 key takeaways are related, as both emphasise the importance of preparation. We know that there's a lot to take in as you go through the NELI training and start delivering NELI sessions, but as with anything new, it always takes a little while to find your feet. Lots of you are now in your 2nd or 3rd year of delivering the programme and have told us that delivery this year has been smoother and easier because, of course, you've done it all before now. But what really helps, no matter how many times you've delivered the intervention, is preparation. So at the start of next year, or really ideally before finishing for summer this year, we recommend that you decide who will deliver NELI, check that the appropriate staff are trained, and remember that if you contact us on support@teachneli.org before 31st of July, you can still access the training for free funded by the DFE. Make sure that you can still access Language Screen in September by renewing your subscription, and we'll talk about this a bit more later. Prepare and organise your resources and take a look at step 1.5 of the hub for guidance on this. and speak to your senior leadership team to ensure that there's protected time and space in which you can deliver NELI sessions. And of course, there will always need to be a bit of flexibility here. We know how difficult it can be to find intervention space. And in fact, we've heard from some practitioners that they've taken steps to make their NELI sessions fully mobile so that they can deliver them anywhere. But it is important that senior leaders understand the time and the resources required to deliver the programme so that they can plan accordingly. And relatedly, any good intervention requires excellent training. We've been told by NELI practitioners as part of trials and independent evaluations that the online training prepares them really well for delivering NELI, but it is absolutely vital that time is provided for NELI practitioners to complete the training in full. Without this, it will be more difficult to deliver NELI effectively, and its positive impact on children's language progress might be reduced. So we recommend that arrangements are made for protected time in which to complete the training. And this doesn't have to be whole days at a time. It can be blocks of an hour or two, as in the example on the slide. And we've designed the training to support with this as much as possible. There are no live elements, so it can fit around your day, and it always picks up where you left off. And it's also certified for up to 12 CPD hours, so it could be completed in time that you've got allocated for professional development. All right, now, as you all likely already know, we always recommend that you assess your whole cohort with Language Screen at the start and the end of the year. And if you're delivering NELI, the main reasons for doing this is that it will help you to identify children whose language needs aren't obvious. We hear anecdotally that in every class, there are usually 1 or 2 children selected for NELI who might not have been picked up on without Language Screen. It also gives you a clear measure of NELI's impact that you can share with others, because just like in research where you need a control group, you need to see the progress of children who didn't have the intervention in order to understand how meaningful the NELI children's progress is. But even if you aren't delivering NELI this year, or if you didn't screen the children with Language Screen at the start of the year, it would still be useful to assess them now, because as they head into year 1, Language Screen will help you to identify the children's language ability in relation to other children their age with their standard scores, because it's not just about selecting the bottom 5 children, but understanding where all of the children sit in context of the rest of the class and indeed the national average. And it will also provide you with a lasting record of your whole class's language abilities, allowing you to identify common difficulties and track progress, or unfortunately, in some cases, lack of progress over the next few years, because remember that Language Screen can be used up to the age of 9. Now, we've had a few questions from schools about whether they can reassess their children now, even if they haven't yet renewed their Language Screen subscription for next year. And the answer is yes, absolutely. Language Screen subscriptions will expire at the end of July. So even if you haven't yet contacted Pearson to discuss your options for next year, you can still complete your assessments now as part of the DFE funded programme. Okay, our last key takeaway that we wanted to include was that NELI teaching doesn't need to stop when your group or individual session ends. We've received so many wonderful stories from practitioners telling us of ways in which they've brought the topics and the activities that they cover in their NELI sessions out into their classroom and even beyond. And there are multiple reasons for doing this. Firstly, you'll extend the benefits of your NELI teaching out to the rest of the children in the class. Secondly, you'll be reinforcing the new vocabulary, narrative and active listening skills that you're working on with the NELI children in their sessions, and giving them chances to practice and embed that new knowledge. And vitally, you'll create opportunities for the NELI children to become the experts and teach their peers, which is such a validating and confidence boosting experience for them. So to wrap up this section, we have absolutely loved reading about your experiences from this year on the training courses, on social media, over email and case studies. So thank you to everyone who's been in touch. And please do continue to share your experiences with us, because we love reading them and we love learning from them as well. All right, now we've been very busy working on exciting new and improved programme elements this year in response to your helpful feedback. So let's look at these next. Firstly, as you'll know, the NELI programme was first rolled out across England in 2020. So quite a few of you will have completed your training some time ago now, and we'd heard from practitioners that it would be useful to have a short course which they could use to refresh their knowledge of the key aspects of the NELI programme. So in response, this spring, we launched our new refresher training. It takes 1 or 2 hours to complete and is certified for up to 2 hours of CPD. And just like the main NELI training courses, there are no live elements, so you can pick it up when suits you. And the course revisits core guidance on oral language development, teaching practices and techniques, and practical aspects of NELI delivery. And it also signposts back into the training and the hub for more information as well. And we've been really pleased with the response so far. Lots of you have left really lovely comments on the course and also used the discussion forum to tell us about your NELI experiences. And in fact, that's actually where several of the quotes at the start of the presentation came from. So thank you very, very much for this. And the refresher training is open to anyone who's already completed the main NELI training courses. So if you'd like to be sent an invitation, please just get in touch with us. As with the rest of the training, it's free to you until 31st of July. Now over to Harley to talk you through some key upgrades to our assessment tools and web platform.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to start with the language screen app. Quite a few of you have been in touch to say that fitting language screen assessments into the school day can be tricky. So I'd like to tell you about a little behind the scenes change we made, which we hope will make a big difference when you're testing your classes. 4 tests that make up language screen have been carefully refined over the years, which means that every test item, every picture, phrase and question is pulling its weight and is included for a good reason. And the level of difficulty increases gradually within each test as it progresses. But this means that the later questions in a test may be too difficult for some children. We know that getting lots of answers wrong in a row can be disheartening for younger pupils in particular, and can affect their level of attention and enthusiasm for continuing the assessment. And that in turn could have a detrimental effect on their scores. So we've carried out some complex analysis of the data from hundreds of thousands of language screen assessments, and this revealed that after a pupil gets a certain number of consecutive answers wrong, the chances of them getting any more answers right after that point are very, very slim. We know that ending the test there won't affect their final scores. So now each of the 4 tests will end early according to rules we've defined based on this analysis. You can see those on this slide. The app will advance to the next test to keep things moving along swiftly, and the final score won't be affected. This not only avoids stretching out the assessment unnecessarily for the pupil, it can save you precious minutes, which will mount up when you're assessing a whole year group. Another change that's coming soon was inspired by observations of real-life language screen assessments in the classroom. We realised that the position of the scoring controls at the top of the screen was forcing teachers to reach over the screen to mark every item, which could be a little uncomfortable when repeated and might slow down the flow of the test. So we're moving the scoring controls from the top to the bottom of the screen, and if you're holding your device, the tick and cross will be in easy reach of your thumbs. If you want to, you can cover the controls with your thumbs, which allows you to mark the tests more discreetly. Keep a lookout for announcements about the new version of language screen, which will be available ahead of the autumn term. Now, if you're new to language screen, we've provided some additional information in our web platform to help you get started with your assessments. After you've logged in to oxedassessment.com and selected your school, a new status bar at the top of the page shows the apps and other services your school has subscribed to. Clicking on language screen will take you to a new page with links to the app stores where you can download the language screen app. And there's also some short videos which will tell you everything you need to know about registering pupils, downloading the apps, conducting assessments and running reports. Now to move on to some other changes we've made to our web platform based on your feedback. Firstly, signing in. It's very important that your children's data is protected and kept secure, which is why, like many banks and other online services, we require 2-factor authentication or 2FA to sign into the platform. By popular demand, we have added an SMS option, so you can now have the 2FA code sent to your phone, or you can continue to use an authenticator app if you prefer. If you've forgotten your 2FA details, don't worry, just get in touch with Oxed support who will be able to reset them for you. We've also heard that some schools have struggled to get access to their OXED account because the account owner left or was unavailable. Again, OXED support will be very happy to help you if you're locked out, but to reduce the chances of that happening in the future, we've added the ability for you to invite multiple users to your school's account, and we've allowed you to choose the role you assign them, whether that be educator if they need read-only access to the QR codes and reports, or admin if they will be helping you manage the account. If you change your mind at a later date, you can easily adjust their permissions through the user page. All users can see their own role displayed in the status bar at the top of each page. If they click on the role, they will see a handy overview of what the different roles mean, along with the names of the owners and admins at the school, so they will know who to go to if they would like to have their permissions changed. And if the owner, who has responsibility for the school's account, is leaving the school or changing role, they can go to the user page and assign someone else to take over ownership of the account. That person will receive an invitation by email, which they will need to accept for the transfer to be confirmed. Look out for news of a further enhancement to the user management tools coming in the next month or so. As you know, the NELI intervention course for teachers and teaching assistants is a critical part of the NELI programme, and soon owners and admins will be able to invite staff to the online training direct from our new training page and track their progress as they move through the course modules. Let's move on to pupil data and reports. You may have noticed that we have reorganised the school, class and pupil pages under a series of tabs, so you can see everything you need at a glance. We know that some of the features were previously a little hard to find or visible only if you scroll down the page. Please take a few minutes to explore and familiarise yourself with what's now available, like the assessment reports, the QR code sheets, or the new simple view of reading reports, which I'll come back to shortly. One tab I'd like to highlight is Import Pupils, which allows you to populate a template spreadsheet with pupil data from your school's management information system and upload it to register a whole class of pupils in one go. To make this even easier, we have added a review page which gives you a chance to check the data before it is imported into the system and flags up any problems that need to be sorted out, such as incorrect format for date of birth. We're also exploring the possibility of connecting directly to school management information systems so pupil data can be imported and synchronized automatically. So if you would find that useful and would like to take part in a pilot of that next year, please get in touch. Once your pupils have been registered, we know many of you print out the PDFs of your class's QR codes and use them as a checklist to keep track of assessments. We've increased the print margins so that when you staple the pages together, you won't be stapling through the QR codes. And next to each pupil's code, we have added space to record that you've reassessed them after the NELI intervention. And sticking with QR codes for a second, one of the most common requests for help received by our support team has been from practitioners who accidentally use the wrong QR code to assess a pupil. We understand it does happen. So we've given you the tools to correct that yourself. You can now easily reassign an assessment to another pupil, and it will recalculate their age standardized scores and feedback based on the date of birth and their age at the time of the assessment. When you've completed your assessments and selected pupils for NELI, we recommend you log the intervention on the website, which is very easy to do by selecting the children from the class page, clicking the record intervention button, and setting the likely completion date for the intervention. That will then be shown in their reports and will make it easier for you to track the impact of the NELI programme. And speaking of reports, we're planning to expand our reporting tools in the near future to give you and your senior leaders more ways of accessing and using your pupils' assessment data. Some of the features we're exploring include progress charts for individual pupils and classes, multi-school reporting formats, and exports of assessment data so you can incorporate it into your school's own data reporting tools. Do get in touch if you'd like to join our report advisory group and have a say in the development of the new features. Now, looking ahead to the autumn term, we'll be updating the year groups for each class automatically over the summer so that the correct information appears in pupils' assessment results. We've also given you the tools to move children between classes by selecting them from the class menu and then using the Transfer Pupils tool to assign their new class ready for next year's NELI programme. So that's some of the changes we've made to Language Screen in our web platform in response to your feedback. Just before I hand back to Sarah, I'd like to tell you about a couple of new apps from Oxford which you can try now. Some of you have already discovered our new Reading Screen app, which is available as a free trial until 31st of July for schools participating in this NELI programme, and which can be downloaded from the new Reading Screen page, which is accessed via the status bar. It's a very quick check of Key Stage 1 and 2 pupils' underlying reading abilities, which works in a very similar way to Language Screen, complements your phonics programmes, and will help schools prepare for statutory reading tests such as the Year 1 phonics screening check. And I'm excited to announce that if children are assessed with both Language Screen and Reading Screen, their scores are now automatically plotted against a two-dimensional simple view of reading graph, which will provide greater insights into the nature of any language or reading difficulties, such as dyslexia or poor comprehension. For those of you who aren't familiar with the simple view of reading, it's a well-established model for understanding reading ability. The DFE reading framework recommends that schools use the simple view of reading to identify whether children have difficulty with decoding or comprehension, as different kinds of teaching are needed for each. You can find a simple view of reading graph for your class by selecting the class and clicking on the simple view of reading tab. Do tell your colleagues in Key Stage 1 and 2 about Reading Screen and the simple view of reading report, and encourage them to make use of the free trial this term. Finally, if you would like to become an Oxford research partner and get involved in the pilot of our new Maths Screen app, also for Key Stage 1 and 2 pupils, use the QR code or drop us a line to find out more.
Thank you, Harley. A huge amount of exciting work going on there. So next up, some of you may have noticed that the teachneli.org website looks a little bit different. And this is because we've reorganised it to give clearer information about the three elements that make up the NELI programme. So that's Language Screen, online training, and the intervention itself. All the usual information that you rely on is still available, including the FAQs, where you can also find the downloadable NELI resources and sound effects for Part 1, Session 22, which I know a couple of people have asked us about, so that's where those are. You'll also still be able to find the login for NELI Leads and others to register new trainees and track progress, and also the timeline to plan your NELI programme throughout the year. But we've also added some new pages which we hope you'll find useful, such as a page dedicated to this new webinar series, where you'll find links to previously recorded webinars and dates for any that are scheduled. There's also a NELI in Action page where you can watch videos of other schools' experiences of NELI. There's a What's in the Box page where you can see examples of what the printed resources look like. And on this page, there's also a link to the downloadable resources and sound effects. And also there's a page introducing NELI Preschool, which is a new oral language enrichment programme that we've developed, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. So we hope that you like the improved site. Do take a look and get in touch if you have any feedback for us. Now, before we move on to talking about what's coming soon, I'll just wrap up this section with a reminder of how to get your NELI subscription ready for next year. All NELI programme subscriptions funded by the DFE will expire on the 31st of July. And until this point, you can continue to use Language Screen and enrol new trainees on the NELI training for free. However, to maintain access to Language Screen, training and NELI support next year, you will need to renew your subscription. And hopefully you've seen that we've partnered with Pearson, who are handling purchasing and subscriptions on our behalf. So for more information or to renew, please go to Pearson's website and look for the section on the NELI programme. Scanning the QR code on the left will take you straight there if you'd like to use that. Or if you're unsure, you can also scan the QR code on the right to submit your details and request a call from Pearson's friendly sales team, who can answer any questions that you might have about what level of subscription your school might need and how to renew. So now that Harley and I have updated you on all of the latest changes, updates, and new programme elements that we've introduced this year, let's quickly touch on what's still to come. So firstly, we've heard from schools that although they love NELI, they wish that the programme could benefit more than just the children in the intervention groups, especially in schools where the level of need is particularly high and perhaps you can't include all of the children that you'd like to in your sessions. So we've been hard at work developing a whole class add-on to NELI, which takes the principles of the targeted sessions and extends them out into a whole class setting. The content of the sessions will be closely linked to those of the targeted sessions. So not only will it extend the benefits of NELI teaching to the wider cohort, but it will also provide opportunities to reinforce the NELI children's learning. We also hope that this will provide you with a quick and easy menu of whole class activities to help you to embed good language practice and NELI teaching into your classroom. The new whole class element of NELI will be an optional add-on to the existing intervention and is designed to run alongside the compulsory targeted elements of NELI. So that's the group and the individual sessions. And it will include a teaching handbook with 20 weeks of scripted whole class activities and some digital resources as well. We'll be in touch soon with more information on when this will be released, but if you'd be interested in trialling a whole class NELI component next school year, please scan the QR code on the screen and complete the form to let us know. Next, I'm going to tell you about a whole new oral language intervention programme that we've developed for children in the year before they start formal education. The NELI preschool programme is 20 weeks long, and just like NELI, it targets children's vocabulary, narrative, and active listening skills. The programme is built around the principles of shared book reading and guided play, introducing children to richer and more structured language than they would typically encounter in spoken interactions. NELI Preschool combines whole class language enrichment with additional targeted support for the children with the weakest oral language skills as measured by Language Screen. And it's designed to close the gap between children while also ensuring that everyone receives the benefit of the programme. So what's the evidence? In 2021-22, 65 nurseries delivered NELI Preschool as part of a randomised control trial. Over 1,500 children received the intervention, and it was found that both the whole class enrichment and the targeted support elements of the intervention significantly improved children's language skills. And the nurseries who took part rated the programme highly for acceptability and feasibility. And in fact, the programme is still firmly embedded into many of these settings, which is lovely. So from next school year, NELI Preschool is going to be made available to settings via the Stronger Practice Hubs and a research trial. If you think your setting would be interested in delivering an oral language intervention for preschool children, please get in touch with us by scanning the code on the left of the slide and filling out the form. And we'll let you know as and when more information is available. You can also scan the QR code on the right to see NELI Preschool in action at one of our lovely trial settings, St. Joseph's Catholic Infant School. All right, so that's it for the main section of our webinar today. And now, as usual, we'd like to wrap up by answering a few questions that we were sent in ahead of today's session. But please do also continue to submit your questions into the Q&A, and our support team will get to as many as that they can. So as we've got Harley with us here today, we thought we'd start off with some questions that you've been sending in around Language Screen. So the first one here for you, Harley, is will there be a desktop or Chromebook version of Language Screen?
Great question. And yes, I'm pleased to say that's under development. It's very important to us that we make Language Screen as widely accessible and available as possible. We know that some schools are moving away from tablets or have older devices that don't support the latest versions of apps. So we're working on a desktop version now and aiming to have that available in the autumn. Please get in touch if you'd like an early sneak peek and the opportunity to provide input into its development.
Thank you. And the next question is, why doesn't Language Screen have the same vocabulary items as the NELI intervention? We get this one a lot.
Yeah, okay. So it's worth clarifying that Language Screen is not a test of children's memory of the specific vocabulary items used in the NELI programme. It's an assessment of broader oral language ability, the sorts of knowledge and skills that are stimulated and improved by NELI. So we wouldn't want to encourage teaching to the language screen test, as that would provide us false picture. So it's quite deliberate that the items in the language screen assessment are not the same as those used in the NELI programme. But please be reassured that language screen is an excellent way to select children for NELI and to assess the impact that the intervention has made.
Thank you. And the third question is, why are language screen tests always the same?
Another good question. We hear a lot in the EdTech world about adaptive assessments, which change the questions they ask based on the responses children give. And those types of assessments definitely have an important role to play. Language screen is different, though, in that it provides a standard to measure children's abilities as they grow older, in a similar way that an eye test does for vision. The tests that make up language screen have been developed, validated and refined over decades by our team of developmental psychologists. And as I mentioned earlier, every item is there for a reason, challenges baked into the tests, and the tests adjust their length according to the ability of the child. The app's reliability, though, has been confirmed by research published in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry, which found that language screen assessments administered by school staff are as accurate, with a correlation of 0.95 for the statistically minded amongst you, as accurate as 30-minute standard language assessments by professional speech and language therapists. So language screen tests do not change because they already do exactly what they need to.
Great, thank you so much. And the last question is a NELI question, so I'll take this one. And someone asked if we can go over the assessments that they need to do at the end of part 2, so at the end of the intervention delivery. So after the last NELI session, you'll see in the recommended timetable that the last 2 days are allocated to assessments. And much like the assessment days at the start and in the middle of the intervention, this time is for you to complete the paper-based assessments that are included in NELI. So that's the assessment of narrative speech and grammar, the attitude and behaviour record sheet, and in part 2, the progress assessment for taught letter sounds. You can, of course, also use this time to carry out any other relevant assessments that you use in your setting. Really, this is just your last opportunity to capture what the NELI children can do. And hopefully you'll be able to see clear progress between the results of this, this last assessment and your first ones from 20 weeks before, or even at various points throughout the intervention. Of course, it's also important to reassess your whole cohort with language screen, although this doesn't need to fit into those last 2 assessment days. As long as you complete your reassessments before the children leave for summer, you'll have a record of the impact of the intervention and a measure of your whole cohort's language ability as they head into year 1. All right, so thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our time together today. If there are any questions that we haven't been able to answer in the Q&A or from your registration forms, we'll get in touch as soon as we can, as long as we have your contact details. But as always, you can email us on support@teachneli.org. Now we're very busy planning our webinar schedule for next year, so we'll be in touch with more information as soon as we have it. And please do get in touch if you have ideas for topics which you'd like us to cover, or if you would like us to showcase your school's NELI delivery through a case study for our website, or even perhaps as a guest on one of our webinars. We would really love to hear from you, so please do get in touch. Thank you very much, everyone. We hope that you have a lovely summer when it arrives, and we look forward to seeing you again in September.